One. What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Back Pocket Podcast. Week 8 of the NFL season already, and we are going to be back with our predictions. I am Serge Kadali, and I am with my two lovely, mature co-hosts, Charlie Nidell and Dylan Shalom. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm really excited to talk about football. It's been a tumultuous start to the season for pretty much everyone involved, so I'm excited to get really into the brass tacks of this.
Yeah, it'll be a good one. I'm ready to get into it. Yeah, doing well.
Absolutely. So let's just get straight into it. We have our Thursday night game, another good one. I feel like we've been getting some good Thursday night games this year. We have the Los Angeles Chargers hosting the Minnesota Vikings. Chargers coming off of a loss to the 6-1 best record in the NFL, Indianapolis Colts, while the Vikings also lost to the Philadelphia Eagles. So two tough matchups and two teams that are looking to get back on track. Dylan, I'll start with you. What do you think about this game?
I like the Chargers in this one. Minnesota haven't been able to figure out their quarterback spot this season. I don't think JJ McCarthy will be back for this Thursday night matchup.
No, it'll be Wentz. It'll
And
be
Carson
Wentz.
Wentz is dealing with a shoulder injury and just like being bad at football, which he was very, very poor against the Eagles, had a couple of incredibly bad decisions over the course of that game. On the flip side, the Chargers have Justin Herbert, who's played decent football to this point. He's had a couple of good games, couple of bad games, about what you'd expect out of him. And while Omarion Hampton is hurt for the time being, the run game hasn't really struggled with Kamani Vidal being able to step in and play some good minutes over the course of the last couple of games. Defensively, I like the way that they stack up against Minnesota, so I'll go with LA.
Go with the Chargers in this one. I think that the Vikings, yeah, as you said, have not been able to figure out their quarterback position yet this year. Wentz had some questionable decisions, but that's what the Eagles do. The Eagles defense has been pressuring quarterbacks into making bad decisions for a couple seasons now. And against their, former Super Bowl leading quarterback, they had showed no mercy. I am going to go with the Chargers here. It was a tough loss against the Colts, but the Colts are beating just about everyone right now. Um, so yeah, I'll take the Chargers. Without Hampton's been a bit of a struggle offensively, and their defense has been really, really poor the last few weeks. But I think they'll have just enough to get this one done against a weak Vikings team so far.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Chargers as well. I was very tempted to pick the Vikings in this one, considering the Chargers consist of me, all three of us on the offensive line right now. But that being said, I do think that, like I said, the difference between Carson Wentz and Justin Herbert is it's too much of a gap. And I also think that the Chargers receivers can take advantage of a relatively weak Vikings secondary. So I'm gonna go LA at home here. Moving on now. I'm gonna enjoy this one because Dylan, you said before this episode that you were going to quote unquote clip farm, and I think this is the time for you. We have your Miami Dolphins going to Atlanta to play the Falcons, and it's safe to say that the Dolphin season's already over. It looks like everything is in shambles, just waiting for the year to be over, tanking at this point. And against the Falcons team, that's pretty average, but I feel like I all know where we're gonna go this week. So, Dylan, I'm just gonna let you have the floor. What do you think about the Dolphins right now?
That should go unsaid, but it won't. The situation coaching wise has been a disaster for the better part of the season. Quarterback play has been below average for the first time in 5 years. The defense has been the worst in the league for a better part, probably the entire season. The offensive line is beyond putrid. A lot of injuries across the entire team, but no, that goes without it goes without saying that I'm picking Atlanta to win this game. I think Bijan Robinson has a good chance of breaking the rushing yard record in a single game against Miami this one. Rico Dowdle had 200 rushing yards against the Dolphins. I think Bijan Robinson with that offensive line and with that game script has a chance to surpass that. I also think Tyler Algier could probably rush for 100 yards while Bijan Robinson breaks that record. This is just a completely broken team. Quinshon Judkins had a hat trick against them. The Dylan Gabriel led Browns stomped all over Miami, and I understand that it was a rainy game that Miami usually doesn't do well in, but it's time to start doing well in those games. You can't just be bad and make excuses over and over again. I'm tired of it. I want to see this team do well, but it's not going to happen here. It's not going to happen now. It's not going to happen this year. It's probably not going to happen with this group of players and coaches. So I'm going with Atlanta.
It's interesting you said that for the first time in 5 years, the QB play has been below average. And I'm going to completely disagree with that statement. I think maybe for the first time in his career, Tua's play has been below average, but Tua hasn't
Okay,
played
that's fair. That's
as
fair.
a
That's fair.
Miami
No,
quarterback.
that's fair. That's fair.
So the quarterback play in Miami, I'd argue, has been bottom 10 for the last 5 years.
Well,
Because
not
when Tua's on the field, it's probably top 15, but he's not on the field for a good amount of time, and it's causing
yeah.
the QB play overall to be just a huge question mark in Miami for years. And now it's not a question anymore. It's a big red X. You can't keep Tua. You can't be Tua moving forward. Um, I've really liked the guy for his whole career. I've been, probably the last of us to turn on him.
Well, I mean,
Not
me.
counting you.
Not
Three of
including
us.
you.
Not counting the resident Dolphins fan. Um, but right now his play screams, I'm the worst quarterback in the NFL and I need to be replaced. A couple weeks ago, I was upset with Kian for saying that he should be cut. I now don't totally disagree with him.
Well, let's look at it financially, look at all the situations. There's no
Yeah.
world that anything outside of Tua starting for the Dolphins next year is happening.
Really? You don't think
I
that
don't
there's
think that
a
I don't think there's a chance. Not now. I, as someone who, when we started this channel, this was my original take that I have stuck with for 5 years, and I have believed down the line that he was going to be the franchise quarterback, and he was the franchise quarterback. I think 5 years is enough time to say that he was the franchise quarterback. I no longer think that this is a viable project for Miami to win with. I don't think that Tua and McDaniel and Hill and Waddle and this group of shifty players is good enough to do anything. I think it's done. That being
So,
that being said, I think that there is no better option for the next 2 years with the contract situation than to let it run its course. Now, I do think McDaniel needs to be fired at the end of the year. I think that's a no-brainer. But in terms of the money we're paying players, Waddle, Tua, Jalen Phillips, so like there's a lot of guys that you would like to see the team move on from maybe that it just doesn't make much viable sense to.
I'll pose an interesting question for you, and I know your answer is going to be, but was Tua more of a franchise quarterback for the Dolphins, or was Daniel Jones more of a franchise quarterback for the Giants?
Tua was a more of a franchise quarterback for the
Why?
Dolphins because he had two or three good seasons for the Dolphins. Three is contingent on whether or not you're counting the injury-riddled 2022 season as a good season. As to Daniel Jones's one good season that I felt like he was being pretty much molded as a high school quarterback in the Brian Dable offense
But Jones played 6 years in New York. Tua played 5 in Miami,
and
and
counting.
and Jones won a playoff game.
Yeah,
So I know
well,
that there's
Nick,
not,
Nick
you
Foles
know,
won a Super Bowl. Was he the franchise quarterback?
that's a pretty different conversation. But
Yeah, but
it's
if you're saying Jones won a
um,
playoff game and that's why he's a franchise quarterback, I feel like that's
I'm not saying that Jones or Tua was necessarily a franchise quarterback, but I think that your logic, you were saying, I always thought Tua would be a franchise quarterback, and now he's been here for 5 years. It's clear that he is. Well, then doesn't that make Jones just as much of one if he was there for 6?
I mean,
well,
I think
but
they both were franchise quarterbacks. They both got paid at the end
the
of the day. They got
the
second contracts with their own
yeah,
team.
I agree with that. The difference being to me is with Jones, there was always the question mark of when is the replacement going to be found. With Tua, I
Hold
don't.
on. The question mark was there for all non-New York Giants fans. The question mark was there for Tua for all non-Miami Dolphin fans.
Nah, that's not true. After 22, 23, no one was
There,
thinking
there
about
were
replacing
there
him.
were
No.
a very large
The,
amount of
the
fans.
the only the only people that were thinking about replacing him were people that thought they were brain surgeons, and maybe those people were right.
That's not
But
true.
like,
It's something
and,
that as a Dolphins fan, maybe you didn't see enough of, but there were
I
enough
promise
people.
you I
There
saw
were
enough.
enough people.
I promise you I've spent enough time
Even at
online.
Tua's peak, I'm not sure he was ever a top 8 quarterback.
At his peak, I would say he was, but I don't think that's a ridiculous claim to say he wasn't. There's a lot of good quarterbacks. At his peak, I think he was sixth or seventh. No pun intended. That's not even a pun. That's just, but like, point being, he's not there anymore. It's a clear regression. I think it's time to exhaust new options in terms of everything. I don't think it makes sense to move on from him going into next year just because of the money situation, because I don't like the draft that much. But take this as the back pocket podcasts, Dylan Shalom finally giving up. That is what this is.
Mm,
But
yeah,
the
I
the
mean,
play the play has been too bad this season. I can't justify it anymore.
yeah, I mean,
Anyway, we'll get
again,
into
I
the
told
signing
about
Atlanta Falcons are going to win this football game.
Oh yeah, I think I'm
Um,
gonna go with the Falcons too. I mean, I talked about it. I mean, we didn't do our predictions in video last week, but I was talking about it. This, even though the Browns were also a very bad team, it was the most predictable outcome. Tua on the road in poor conditions against a good defense was always only going to end one way. And although the conditions are better, it's in a dome. Similar kind of game. Atlanta has one of the most improved defenses in the NFL, and again, Bijan Robinson against that run defense. I mean, coughing baby versus atomic bomb, so, or whatever the saying is. So yeah, give me Atlanta in this one. We're gonna move on finally to a game that basically, I feel like, in my opinion, looking at their schedule for like the next 8 weeks is gonna determine the Baltimore Ravens season, because they're gonna be home back with Lamar Jackson against the Chicago Bears. And
Is
I
Lamar
really
back?
think Lamar will I'm pretty sure he'll be back.
I
I
don't
think
think he
he'll be back.
practiced. I don't think he
supposed to be.
practiced
Yeah,
either
but
of
you
the
have
first two.
he has a week. He has a week. I think he will be back. And the reason why I say this is a game that really will determine the fate of Baltimore season, because after Chicago, who are a good team, they have Miami on the road, Minnesota on the road, Cleveland on the road, the Jets at home, the Bengals at home, the Steelers at home, the Bengals on the road, and then they host New England. So going into that Patriots game, there's a realistic chance, honestly, they could be 9-5 going into that. But they need to get a they need to get a win. They cannot go 1-6 and then have to basically win out or maybe only lose one more game for the rest of the season. And I think this game with Lamar coming back against a Bears team that is, they're riding high. They're looking good. They think they can be a playoff team themselves. It's not going to be as easy as people think. I'm going to go with Baltimore, though. I think that Lamar Jackson is going to put the team on his shoulders. I don't really still like that Bears defensive front that much. So I think the Ravens offense is going to keep Caleb Williams off the field. I trust that secondary to maybe hash some of the things out that they were really all the miscommunication issues, all the just playing bad issues, and they'll at least have a solid enough performance where they'll give Lamar a chance to be Superman, and he will do it. Give me the Ravens in this one.
I'm also gonna go with the Ravens, considering Lamar Jackson is playing. If it's Cooper Rush, that flips. But I mean,
Yeah.
we're making this call right now, so I will trust your guys' expertise here and go with the Ravens to win. I think their team is not particularly threatening down the line in the playoffs outside of Lamar Jackson. Derrick Henry's taken a clear regression. They don't have a 1A weapon, and the defense doesn't look like it's even top half.
I think
But
Derrick Henry is still, sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm just saying I think Derrick Henry hasn't really regressed as much as people say. I mean, I know
it's a
the
regret. No,
fumbles are a concern, but
the
I think
fumbles are
that's
concerning, but I think it's more of a regression in the sense of he's not as dynamic of a runner anymore. He's still as powerful as he's ever
I
been.
mean, that's what
I don't think he has. I mean, it might just be that Lamar hasn't been there for
that's
him.
what that's my
But
point. I think yeah, I'll let you go in just a sec. I just think that he's gonna show a lot. He's gonna look
yeah,
like the running back we saw closer to
yeah.
Buffalo week 1 than later in the season.
I believe it. I do believe it, but I also think that there is a little bit of the speed element that he's lost over even the last two seasons. But
Hmm.
I think Lamar Jackson being back wins the Ravens pretty much every game against mediocre to even a little bit above average opponents. He's that much of a game breaker, and Chicago's not a team that I think particularly changes my mind on that. So give me the Ravens to win with Lamar.
yeah. I saw something interesting recently that was a Ravens fan ranting about Zay Flowers and how the Seahawks got JSN, the Chargers got Quentin Johnston, the Vikings got Addison, the Chiefs got Rashee Rice, the Rams got Puka Nacua, and they were left with Zay Flowers, who, in all fairness to him, has been a Pro Bowl receiver, but just hasn't had the impact over the course of his career as a wide receiver one as people were maybe expecting him to have and
Yeah.
people hyped him up to be. And I think that's a big thing that the Ravens maybe thought they didn't have to address is that receiver position with Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman. But it is a big concern as the offense lacks a true receiver one. When
They
Lamar's on the
always
field
have
healthy,
throughout Lamar's entire career.
they have. When Lamar is playing at his absolute best, which is MVP level, no doubt, it doesn't much matter who their receivers are because he was finding just about everybody wide open last year. But then, he hasn't, obviously, he's been injured since week one or two. Um, but, he even did in that first week didn't look quite like himself from last season. And Derrick Henry hasn't been as good and as explosive. Uh, so I think that the Ravens, it's a good chance for them to get back on track this week against a Bears team that I haven't really liked all season. Um, and I think they will. The betting line seems to hint that Lamar will be back. So I'm going to go with the Ravens in this one. Defensively, haven't impressed me. Offensively, obviously, you're without your MVP. So, you
Mm,
know,
yep. Let's move on now to another toilet bowl. We have the New York Jets going to Cincinnati to play the Bengals. Well, at least the Bengals did win last week against the Steelers, and their offense did look pretty good. I think the Jets defense has figured it out a little bit more. That secondary seems to be vastly improving now. Namely, I think Brandon Stevens has looked a lot better, and the trade for Jarvis Brownlee has also kind of invigorated a bit of life into one of the worst defenses in the NFL the first few weeks of the season. But that being said, this offense, whether it's Fields or Tyrod, right now it's just completely helpless, and I don't think Garrett Wilson will be back either. So, for that reason, for me, pretty easy. I'm gonna go Cincy.
This is your one. This is your one for me. I think Flacco's immobility makes it a pretty feisty matchup for your defense. I don't think that they have the staying power in the run game to even compete with your defense in that sense. And then I think Tyrod Taylor is a significantly better quarterback than Justin Fields is. We've seen Justin Fields unable to hit a guy 5 feet in front of him, while Tyrod Taylor led some decent drives in the game against Carolina. He was just capped off by deep interceptions because his receivers can't draw any separation. Now, does that change? No. But you're also not playing against J.C. Horn anymore. You're playing against the Bengals secondary, who couldn't hold the three Steelers tight ends and DK Metcalf to anything. So I think if you're gonna win a game that isn't 5 weeks from now, if you're gonna win a game in your next couple of weeks, it's gonna be this one. And I think that partial Westchester Soccer Club owner Tyrod Taylor gives you the best chance to win this game.
Mm. Nice plug.
yeah, I mean, we know what Tyrod Taylor is, right? He's been a perennial backup for a long time, and he's a really, really darn good backup. Uh, there he could be better than certain starters in the league. He's better than Justin Fields. He's probably better than Tua right now. Uh,
No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that.
Well, we know what Tyrod Taylor is. He's not, your franchise savior at this point. At one point for the Bills, he was. He's not right now. He's a good backup. And look, for the Bengals, what worked was getting the ball to their top guys last week. Chase Brown finally had over 100 yards, finally had like over 50 yards. And Jamar Chase and T. Higgins racked up 33 targets from Joe Flacco, which is an immense amount, 23 of those to Jamar Chase. And, look, it's not rocket science. Keep throwing them the ball. Good things are going to happen. I think the Bengals win this relatively comfortably. The Jets, hopefully Brees Hall gets in the end zone,
Hmm.
gets himself a good trade destination for my fantasy team.
Yeah, who knows if he'll even
Uh,
be here by this time
yeah,
on
right.
Sunday.
But I think the Bengals should have a pretty comfortable win in this one. I know the Bengals defense isn't great, but it's not going to take much to hold down an offense that, maybe is without Justin Fields and Garrett Wilson.
Yeah. I mean, I already said it. I think Bengals win this one. I do think Tyrod Taylor does clean up some of the issues that the Jets offense has had with timing, but at the same time, I've watched him. He's definitely not a top 32 quarterback at this point in the NFL. And
Yeah.
Cincinnati's defense, even though they're not great, they'll be able to slow down this offense right now. So give me the Bengals for this one. Moving on, another team with a quarterback injured, the Carolina Panthers will be hosting the Buffalo Bills, and the Bills coming off a bye week, this feels like the classic get right game for Buffalo. I think this one again, another pretty easy one for me. I'm gonna go with the Bills here, even though I don't love what they've looked like this season, but I'm gonna go with the Bills.
I haven't liked what the Bills have been in the last couple of weeks either, but I do think that they will be able to stand tall against a Andy Dalton led Carolina Panthers team that, to their credit, are on a 3 game win streak, but less to their credit, almost lost to the Jets last week. This is
There are a
not
lot of
a,
teams that have almost lost to the Jets this year, though. Like the Broncos almost lost to the Jets.
I don't think they're good either.
Uh, uh yeah, but they're 5-2. So I
I
mean,
still don't think they're
apparently,
good.
apparently they're going to the Super Bowl. But
I'm not moved by them, but I watched the Carolina game in its entirety against the Jets, and outside of Teteroa McMillan and J.C. Horn and Bryce Young to a degree, there was no and Derek Brown. Derek Brown had a really good game. There was no player on that team that I think stacks up to some of the all-pro talent across the Buffalo team. That defensive line and offensive line duo are still amongst the best in the league. The secondary is a little bit wishy-washy, and I do think Andy Dalton could take advantage of that at some points, but this is a pretty comfortable Buffalo win for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you guys. Going into last week, the Panthers were 3-0 at home and 0-3 away. They broke that trend by beating the Jets at MetLife. Now they'll break it again by losing to the Bills in Carolina. Um, the Bills are just going to have too much offensive firepower for this team in Carolina. J.C. Horn, you said it, is having a really good season, had a really good couple games, but after the bye, I think Buffalo has to use this as a get right week. They've got to, um, get their feet back under them. I think I said a couple weeks ago when they dropped the first game that they could then use that week to get right, and they were unable to do so. Um, so I think this is going to be a big one. Dropping to 4-3 here would be, putting them in a really risky spot, losing 3 games in a row. And it's not impossible. This almost feels like a little bit of a trap game because the Panthers have been really strong recently. You said, 3 straight wins, but I think the Bills should, and Josh Allen should have enough to get this one done.
Mm. Moving on now to two teams that feel like in different directions. One team, the Texans, just finding ways to lose, now 2-4 on the year against the Niners team that, despite all injuries, including all pros Nick Bosa and Fred Warner, pulled off a big win on Sunday night against the Atlanta Falcons in Houston. Charlie, I'm gonna go to you first. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, this is a tough one. Surprisingly to me, the Texans are favored in this one. The Niners' play has been much stronger, but the Texans defensively have been really, really great the last few
Hmm.
weeks.
Hmm.
This is a defense that's stepping up and giving CJ Stroud as many opportunities as they can. The only problem for him is his offensive line is taking those opportunities right back. You can look at it and say, wow, CJ Stroud's numbers are really bad. His completion percentage is super low. He has barely any touchdowns. He's throwing too many interceptions. His yardage numbers are low. But when you actually sit down and watch a Texans game, you look at it and you say, "Wow, I don't blame him at all." Because there's almost no quarterback in the NFL that would be able to deal with what he's dealing with. And I know there are a few really bad offensive lines in the NFL right now. The Raiders are really bad. The Bengals are pretty bad. But this Texans offensive line has to take that award for me because gosh, you watch the amount of free blitzers on 4-man rushes and 5-man rushes. It's pretty ridiculous. It's even just not smart blocking. It's not smart play calling either because I was watching last night and the Texans had multiple 3rd and 1s, 3rd and 2s where they were going with like power run schemes to Woody Marks. Like they don't have the offensive line for that. At a certain point, you got to put the ball in CJ Stroud's hands, roll him out of the pocket and see what he can do because that's your franchise guy. That's your most talented player. The Texans game planning is just all wrong for that offensive line. And even when they game plan it right, it's been really hard to avoid pressure. He's getting sacked a lot. He's getting pressured a lot. I don't blame CJ Stroud. I'm gonna go in this one for the Niners. That like the Niners have a pretty good defensive line too, even with injuries. Um, and offensively, they're going to be a good matchup for the Texans defense. I think when you look at Will Anderson, Daniel Hunter against Christian McCaffrey, who had over 200 yards last week. I think it'll be a good matchup. I think this will be a close one. I'm going to take the Niners just barely.
A lot of the onus on what's gone wrong with Houston has been on the offensive line, deservedly so. The run game, deservedly so. CJ Stroud, to a degree, I think deservedly so. But I don't think I've seen enough people talk about how the elite wide receiver, Nico Collins, who is apparently one of the 7 premier pass catchers in the league, has completely failed to adapt to a team that cannot play short football. This is a team where he needs to be able to be that checking point. And instead, to a degree at the fault of Bobby Slowick, to a degree at the fault of CJ Stroud, but also at the catch point, Nico Collins hasn't been good this year. Nico Collins has not been a good wide receiver one, albeit all of those things I just said are important. He hasn't been a capable wide receiver one, and he hasn't been an elite wide receiver one, which is what they need him to be in order to stand any sort of chance. Because you look at this team going into the season and you figured, yeah, you know what? This is a really brutal makeup, but CJ and Nico will be able to play catch. And while CJ hasn't been able to throw it, and people have seen that, Nico hasn't been able to catch it, and no one's paying attention to that. This is someone that was coming into the season with the likelihood of being a top 5 receiver in the league. He hasn't been top 50. He that's a stretch. He hasn't been top 20. And I think it's time for people to put some of that blame, not to be the blame assigner or anything, on that receiving room and on Nico Collins because outside of 2 deep touchdowns, he really has not done anything this year.
Look, it's also
Yeah.
tough when you look at a team that's receiving core is made up of, yes, Nico Collins, but then you go to a rookie in Jaden Higgins. You've got a second or third year player in Xavier Hutchinson, a rookie in Jalen Noel. Like all the focus for a defense because they don't have to focus on pass rush. They're going to get pass rush and they're going to be able to stop the run. Almost all the focus for defense is on Nico Collins. And yes, Nico Collins is playing poorly. But at a certain level, you have to accept the fact that if CJ Stroud's not going to give him a good ball because he's getting pressure and he's double teamed, there's just not a lot he can do. Because if I was a defense game planning against the Texans right now, all I would do is mark Nico Collins out of the game.
But I think it shows that in a world of adaptable wide receivers like the Jeffersons, Chases, Puka Nakuas, Amon-Ra St. Browns, the receivers like Nico Collins and like Terry McLaurin to a degree, and like AJ Brown,
You forgot to put like
and
Malik Neighbors in the top tier.
he's injured. The prototype of receiver I'm talking about is a receiver that I have historically liked, but you can't have that be your number one option and your only option in a team that can't let the quarterback stand. So when we look at a Nico Collins, I don't think you can say he's a top 5 wide receiver in football
Well, I
anymore.
agree with you, but that's also because Nico Collins came into this league as a deep threat wide receiver, and he has thrived in this league as a deep threat. He was a
Hmm.
deep threat first. He was never supposed to be um, a Justin Jefferson archetype player. And while he is the best deep threat wide receiver in the NFL, and someone who has the game breaking ability because he's got speed, he's also 6'3" or 6'4", I believe. Um, he is a relatively one-dimensional player compared to the guys at the top of the league, like your Justin Jeffersons, like your Malik Neighbors, like your Jamar Chases. He doesn't have the ability to take over the game by getting 15 catches. His ability to take over the game is by burning you over the top 3 times.
Well,
And when CJ
Malik Neighbors' knee is 2 dimensional now.
Um, when
All
CJ
right.
Stroud doesn't even have enough time to throw the ball 40 yards downfield, it takes away a really big part of Nico Collins' game. So yes, Nico Collins has not been super impressive. But I also, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, I bet if you looked at his target share of deep balls, it's down.
Hmm.
And catchable balls, it's down because I'm watching the game last night and CJ Stroud doesn't even have time to step into throws.
No,
And when you
I
can't
recognize.
step into throws, you can't torch a defense over the top, no matter who the
Yeah.
Yeah.
receiver.
I mean,
No,
I think everything Charlie said, I mean, I wish I could just like he took the words out of my mouth. I mean, I do agree with Dylan that maybe
I
we did
felt really
overhype.
smart saying that.
You
Like,
did. You did. He looks really smart. No, no glaze, but I mean, anyways, I think
no,
going back to the Nico take. Sorry, I just need to give my prediction
no,
first.
go ahead, go ahead.
But going back to Nico take, I mean, I think we did. I agree with Dylan that maybe we did crown him top five a little too early. But at the same time, this is someone where, yeah, he may not be as diverse in his skill set as some of the elite receivers in the NFL, but his trick is one of the best tricks in the NFL. And we saw him lead the league in receiving yards before going down last year. I think you can't blame someone for being who he is, still being who he is, when the Texans, I think CJ Stroud right now has the worst offensive infrastructure in the entire NFL right now because they trade away the one guy that could protect him. So they have no one that could protect him on that offensive line. Yes, he could be doing better by stepping up into pockets a little bit more, making it a bit easier. But when your interior offensive line is Laken Tomlinson, Jake Andrews, and Ed Ingram, I mean, I would not step into that pocket anytime. So I think I understand. I completely agree with Charlie that I think Stroud is still a great quarterback. I still think Stroud is a very good quarterback. And I think we've seen other great quarterbacks, even the best ever, like Mahomes, like Josh Allen at times, even not look like themselves because they have bad offensive lines or bad receiving cores or bad play calling. So I'm not saying Stroud is that kind of level of quarterback, but I'm saying give him a chance when he has maybe one of these guys, whether it's Noel or Higgins, develops into a capable receiver too. And when he has more than 2.5 seconds to throw the ball to really evaluate him. And I think for that reason, I think the Texans offense is just going to look bad against the Niners defense that no matter who they lose, they play like one of the fastest defense in the NFL and they always manage to get pressures. So I'm going to go San Francisco in this one. Low scoring, pretty boring in my opinion, but I'm going to go 49ers.
Yeah, I'll also go San Francisco. And I do agree with you guys in the sense that, yes, the situation's bad for everyone. But when you're looking at a player and again, this is more just referring to the way that people were talking about the team going into the year. When you're looking at a player that is being touted as one of the best in his position, he should be able to play at a level that is better than this level, regardless of what's going on around him. At least better than what he's doing. Like, I'm not saying he has to be a top five receiver with this craziness. Bobby Slowick at offensive coordinator.
Nick
Like,
Caley now,
okay. Wait, when did that happen?
last offseason. But he's basically been Bobby Slowick
Yeah,
2.0, so, not really much of a
I
difference.
didn't even know they canned him. But all that obviously is going to take a toll on someone's skill set and someone's ability to accumulate yards. But I do think that if you are what people say he is, you need to be able to do better. That's really where I was coming from.
Yeah. We'll move on now to pretty easy one to predict. The 5-2 New England Patriots. God help us all. Drake May looks like a franchise quarterback. He looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the league. But he'll have a test today. He'll be not today, on Sunday against the Cleveland Browns. A pretty good defense. He's not gonna have to score many points to win. I don't think that Miami explosion is really indicative of anything more
That
than
was
just a
not their
fluke. I
offense. That
I
was
don't
not Cleveland's
yeah.
offense. That was their
I I
defense.
I cannot imagine that they'll have even close to similar results. Pretty easy for me. I think Drake May will maybe slow down a little bit this week, but I still think he'll look like one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. He'll be able to put up a respectable stat line. The Patriots will probably win by 2 or 3 scores.
Yeah, I'm taking the Patriots as well. I'm scared of Drake May. He recently broke the franchise record for completion percentage, which is insane because Tom Brady is the completion percentage guy. But that team is, while not particularly stacked up on paper, they have a top 10 quarterback in the league and a top half defense, and that's all you're going to need to beat the Browns.
Yeah, agreed. Look, Drake May looks really, really, really good. 78% completion percentage through a four-game winning streak is pretty immaculate. Uh, and he's doing it without a very dominant receiving core. He's doing it with, in fact, like not a very good receiving core at all.
I think it's a bit better than people give him credit for. I
It's not
think
bad and it's pretty well balanced, but he doesn't have a wide receiver one.
Diggs, I would say is. I mean,
He is for like
he's
one
low end
game this
receiver one, but
season.
he's still. I would like. I still think Diggs is someone who, even after the ACL, he's still someone who's dangerous after the catch. Probably one of the better hands in the NFL. I think he's a good. He's not what he was, but he's still a great young wide receiver for a young quarterback to have.
Yeah, I mean, but look, and the Browns have had some promising signs this season. I will say Quinshon Judkins looks really good. Harold Fannin and David Njoku look really good. Defensively, they don't look too bad. But I am going to go with the Patriots in this one. Home field advantage. And they just look like a much better team right now. The Patriots look like, predicted it before the season, a wild card team.
Yeah, I mean, maybe even better than that. I think the way Buffalo are looking, especially their schedule, I think it's scary just to see how good Drake May has been completion percentage wise when you see a lot of these quarterbacks in the NFL right now where they check the ball down. May is not doing that. May will push the ball downfield, and he has been pinpoint all year long. So I think obviously signs look good for him and for the Patriots. We'll move on now to the Philadelphia Eagles. Second time in 3 weeks, they will be playing the New York Giants, who are coming off a heartbreaking loss to the Denver Broncos. But there are promising signs. Jackson Dart has shown improvement through his 4 weeks, and it's looking like the Giants might have something there. So, Charlie, I'm gonna go to you. Do you think the Giants can pull off the unlikely sweep?
I mean, like they could, right? I mean, I didn't think they would win the first leg, so I don't think they're going to win the second one either. Um, Especially coming off of such bad heartbreak against Denver. It's interesting to think that that game could just really change a season because uh it's the difference between 2 wins, 2-5 and 3-4 and being on a 2-game win streak and Dart winning 3 of his first 4. Um And then the coaching just it's hard to think that even if the Giants are a decently competitive team this year, that they won't fire Brian Daboll and Shane Bowen and Mike Kafka because all three of them I think are not doing the job that they, are paid to do. They're doing a pretty bad job of it. The defensive collapse in one quarter is maybe the worst I've ever seen. 33 points in a quarter. And the saddest part to me is that I'm seeing so many people blaming Jude McAtomney for missing a couple extra points.
Hmm.
I don't think that, look, McAtomney shouldn't have a job in the NFL for missing two extra points. But the defense allowing 33 points in a singular quarter to and I think we can all agree, like, this isn't the Ravens or the Bills or the Chiefs. Like, this is the Broncos who have a, really solid team, but they're not a 33 points team in a game. This is a team that's going to beat you by shutting you out defensively, not by exploding and putting 30 past you offensively. And the Giants had just gone seven straight quarters or five straight quarters of shutout football. They hadn't let up a point in five quarters, and then all of a sudden there were 33 points on the scoreboard for Bo Nix and the Broncos. Um, After a game like that, I can't see the Giants going and beating the Eagles in Philly after I think 12 or 13 straight years losing in Philly. Um, I I just it's a pretty demoralizing loss, and it'll continue with the Eagles here.
Yeah, I agree. The Eagles are going to be the ones that come out of this one as the winners. Insane turn of events in the game against the Broncos. Against the, again, you said it best, an offense that really isn't an offense that's going to get 33 points in a game against you. But there was some inefficiencies with Dart in the fourth quarter, but you can't place any of that blame on him. That's not his collapse. That's more the defense's collapse and the play calling's collapse. But carrying into this game, you can't win a game. They should have won a game, but you can't win a game when your two leading receivers are Wan'Dale Robinson and Lil Jordan Humphrey. It's just not something you can do, especially with Wan'Dale being the guy in the slot going against Cooper DeJean, who's a slot specialist. I think that this is a very straightforward Eagles win, although it's the same teams that played each other just 2 weeks ago, so who knows? But I'm not counting on the Scatterboo hat trick again, so I'm going with the Eagles.
Yeah, same Eagles here. I know what I know Dylan specifically what his viewpoint is on midseason firings. Shane Bowen should not have a job. I don't know how you can justify him coaching this team the next week because there's talent on this defense. This is a defense that we said before the season was one of the better defensive lines in the NFL, and they haven't looked, I mean, they haven't been incredibly impressive, but they're a good defensive line. And
Yeah,
I mean, I don't understand, especially I think it was like that last drive where they rushed three guys, defending a
Yeah, the
lead.
pressure rates are startlingly low, I think, from the Giants. Brian Burns, albeit, has 9 sacks and leads the NFL this
Yeah.
season. There's a
Abdul has a
great
really high,
pressure.
I thought from what I saw, he had a
And
good pressure
Abdul,
rate.
they're all playing very well, but I just feel like opposing quarterbacks have a good amount of time. But there's
Mm.
no reason that based on on the talent on this defense, they shouldn't be a top three defense at minimum in the NFL. When you're looking at a team that has Abdul Carter, Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence, and Brian Burns on the
But you
defensive
you
line.
also employed Deontay Banks, so that's
Who, to
another
be
thing.
fair,
But
Like,
was
you have
not,
a
it was
solid
only playing because Cordell Flott was
But
injured.
and not only those four guys, but you have good depth on the defensive line and guys like Robertson Harris. You're also looking at Akarake as a middle linebacker who's been one of the best middle linebackers in the NFL over the last 3 or 4 seasons. Almost always leads the league in tackles or is close to it. And the secondary has been pretty good when you've got guys Adebo, Flott, Drew Phillips is one of the best slot corners in the NFL. It's time to start having that discussion. There are ups and downs that come with having a good slot corner. He has the most defensive penalty yards allowed in the NFL. He also is a phenomenal tackler and a really great cover corner. He's just an aggressive guy. And then your safeties are good too with Javon Holland, Tyler Nubin, Dane Belton had a big play. Um, this defense, there's no reason they shouldn't be a top three defense in the NFL. Shane Bowen is holding them back. 33 points in a quarter is outrageous. I wouldn't even be upset if all three of them were fired this week.
Yeah, I mean, Based on this trajectory, it doesn't seem like that could be as far away as people think. We'll move on now. Another pretty easy one to predict. We have the New Orleans Saints hosting the Bucks, coming off a big loss, coming off
Yeah.
another Mike Evans injury. So again, they're gonna be for as they've been all year, very short-handed on offense. But going against the Saints team, I don't really anticipate that mattering. Dylan, I'll go to you first. What do you think about this one?
Can we bring back a staple of the Back Pocket podcast, the 3-2-1?
3, 2, 1. All right, all right. Let's do it.
Three,
3, 2.
2, 1, Buccaneers.
Yeah, I mean, not really much to say other than that. It's a pretty easy one to predict. We'll move on quickly to a team that, again, another pretty easy one to predict, but I do want to talk about this team a little bit. The league leading Indianapolis Colts hosting the Tennessee Titans. And this team, they look like the offensive juggernaut that they were during the Peyton Manning era, except this time it's with Daniel Jones as their starting quarterback. I wish I could say I saw this coming. I did not see this coming, but in hindsight, it looks like this was obvious all along. You're looking at a team that has a top five offensive line, top five running back, already a top five, arguably top three tight end in Tyler Warren, and good weapons across the board at receiver, although there is a lack of a clear wide receiver one. This team just has been stacked with talent, and Daniel Jones, I mean, it's like I can't think of a good analogy here, but you get what I mean. He's going from rags to riches now in this offense, and it is showing up perfectly for the Colts. So against the Titans, this one's going to be a pretty easy one to predict. I think they will improve to a league best 7-1 now and take a pretty firm grip on the division lead.
Yeah, I agree with you. And watching this team play is nothing short of surprising because you look at the group of players out on the field. The offensive line top five in the league, you could argue top three. You could honestly argue top one at this point. They've been that good. The defense across the board, top 10. I think you could argue it's a top 10 unit in the league. I don't think you could really argue top five based on how they've played this season. You can, but I still think there's not enough high end talent to say that they're a top five unit, but a very good unit. That should be enough to win you half of the games they've won. The rest has to be done with the skill position players. And you look at Jonathan Taylor and Tyler Warren, those are high end players. After that, you have no certifiable wide receiver one. You have Daniel Jones at quarterback. This team should not be winning the amount of games that they're winning, but they're winning them on the correct accord. You know why? Because Daniel Jones is playing good football right now. It's not a I mean, it is a situation that's working very well for him. Let's be very clear. It's the offensive line is helping him out a lot. But when push has come to shove, the dude has shown up. He's made plays where plays have needed to be made with players that are not necessarily that much better than the receivers that were in New York with him.
Eh, I don't
Michael,
know.
better, yes. That much better, no. Michael Pittman and Josh Downs are not good wide receiver options to have, in my
Better than
opinion.
Neighbors and Wando. It's just
They're good. They're good wide receiver twos. I would say.
Yeah,
I
they're
would
good
say
wide receiver twos.
all of three. They have three high end wide receiver twos in my
Who's
eyes.
the third one?
Alec Pierce,
Okay, okay, I
just
don't
because
mind.
he's a great deep threat. I
Yeah,
think.
I don't mind that. But
Yeah.
the point being, they have a guy that they can target as a blanket in Warren. They have a guy that they could target as a third down guy in Josh Downs. They have a high point guy in Michael Pittman. They have a deep threat in Alec Pierce. That's all you need. So even if you don't have the high end guys, they've constructed their roster so well, and Steichen has coached this team so well that Daniel Jones is able to flourish and play a game that he's not really feeling that much pressure because that was his biggest weakness in New York is feeling the pressure from the defensive line as well as just simple short ball accuracy. But he's been able to do a great job at that, and it's going to continue to win them games down the stretch. I wouldn't be surprised if this team's the one seed at the end of the season. I'm going to Indianapolis.
yeah, I mean Serge, what you said about, Jonathan Taylor and the Colts offensive line being top five almost feels disrespectful to the work that they've put in, which is crazy to say because I think it's pretty undisputable that at this point Jonathan Taylor is the best running back in the NFL right now. Right
The
now.
Right
Bijan
now,
and
I think.
CMC.
On the
Bijan
No,
and
play
CMC.
right
no. I
now,
think. I
Jonathan
think
Taylor is
right
the
now I
best.
would agree with him. I would say right now he's the
And the
best.
Colts offensive line on play is also the best. Uh,
I agree with that one.
Philly has a case. I think Philly still.
I'm taking Indy's O line right now. Bernard Raymond's been the best tackle in football for this entire season.
Quentin Nelson, inaugural protector of the year, maybe. I would say.
Yeah,
I think there's a case. There's a case.
so is there? Could we compare this team to, I was just thinking about the Tennessee Titans team that went and won the division in what,
Mm,
2021
I
with
like
Ryan
that. I like that.
Tannehill, Derrick Henry, a solid offensive line, nothing special at receiver, and a solid
Yeah.
defense.
They had AJ Brown
A rookie AJ Brown, right? I think.
2 years
Well,
in, but
the
yeah,
year they went 12-5, it was like third year, fourth year
yeah.
AJ
Oh,
Brown.
was it? Okay. But I feel like it's not even a super far stretch to say that like Ryan Tannehill, Daniel Jones, Jonathan Taylor, Derrick
Yeah,
Henry,
no, I see
it's
it.
a
I definitely
decently
see it.
comparable team. And look, the Colts are playing really great football, and it's hard to think it'll come to a stop. Favored by 14 points at home against the Titans and rookie Cam Ward. Um, yeah, these teams already faced off in week one. The Colts won by 3 touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor has 3 rushing touchdowns in 3 games or in 7 games. Or he has 3 games with 3 touchdowns, and they've only played 7 games,
That's
which
crazy.
is which is just unbelievable. Um, I'd expect this to be closer than 3 touchdowns, not quite within 10 points. And I don't think this will be a relatively close one. The Colts should win this.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I will say is that Dylan, you talked about it being his greatest weakness. It was Daniel Jones under pressure. I think he's looked a little bit better. I think I've seen a
He
few
has.
plays
He
where
has.
he has actually faced the pressure. He's stepped up into it. He's evaded, and that kind of tells you where when you have a new system, when you're in an offense that doesn't get you hit as much, you actually sometimes end up looking better even when you do face that pressure. And I think you guys are being a little bit disrespectful to that receiving room. I'm saying I don't think it's great. But no, actually I think it's good because I know they don't have a number one guy, but Dylan talks about it also. You have guys that have all the different skill sets that you need where you have the deep threat, you have the high point guy, you have the third down guy, you have all the guys you need, and then you have one of the best tight ends in the league. I feel like all these guys are right where they're supposed to be in terms of target share, and they're all dependable guys, all I would say above average receivers, above average starting receivers in general. So I think in that way, Daniel Jones, even if he doesn't have a true number one receiver, I still think he does have one of the better receiving cores in the entire National Football League. And I think that's the reason why they are first in EPA per play, first in success rate, second in drop back EPA per play. So I think this is just a well oiled machine across the board. I don't think anyone's really carrying the load for anyone. So I think that's what's so impressive about this offense. Um, we'll move on now. 3 games left. We have the Denver Broncos coming off a miraculous home win against the New York Giants, hosting another NFC East team in the Dallas Cowboys. Charlie, I'll go to you first. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I think the Broncos will win this one. The Broncos are 3-0 at home this season. They've just found ways to win games. You can almost compare it to the Chiefs last season with a little bit of devil magic, we'll call it. Um, what Bo Nix is doing is working, whatever it is. At least it worked for a singular quarter, and that's all it needed to work for last week. Um, I think they'll do much better this week, coming off of a 33-point quarter, facing a relatively weak defense in Dallas, but also a really good offense. So I think that I mean Dallas is the third ranked NFL offense right now, I believe, in terms of points per game. So they're going to give the Broncos a test for sure. But the Broncos do have one of those premier defenses in the NFL, and I think they'll do just enough. I think it'll be a high scoring one. Maybe the Broncos will go a crucial stop down towards the end, but look, CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens have looked really, really good this season so far. I wouldn't be surprised if the Cowboys scored 30 more.
I'm going with Dallas. I think that Denver's run at the start of this season has been a teensy bit fraudulent to say the least. I don't think Bo Nix has played a good season of football. That 33-point comeback is going to save his PR quite a bit because it was going down the toilet before then. But you look on the flip side, and Dak Prescott has been playing unbelievable football. He's been playing at a top five level this season, completely gave the Commanders Dak shots. There was no way of beating out a
Using
team.
that in a video is crazy.
I'm not the creator there. I stole that from Twitter. I want that to be known. I'm not that creative. But he was able to open up that Commanders defense and just insert those deep passes right into those holes for CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens to move on forward, and he just found the correct spots completely. And the Commanders really couldn't adjust. They were shaking by the end of the game. They couldn't deal with it because Dak just hit them so good in the right spot.
All right, do we need to move on now? I'm gonna go with the. I mean, actually, I was kind of
I'm going with the
this.
Cowboys. On a serious note, I think the Cowboys defense is a very, very major weakness to this team. But I think if you flip the script, the Broncos offense is not going to be able to move the ball at a regular enough level to keep up with Dak's velocity and Dak's ability to just completely isolate defenders and do a really good job in that front.
Hmm. Yeah. I'm gonna go Denver. I really want to pick the Cowboys because I actually do agree with a lot of what Dylan is saying, especially the Bo Nix fraudulent part. Because look, let it be said, it was a good comeback, but he has played remarkably below average football this entire year. No one's talking about it because the Broncos are 5-2. And I think they're going to continue not to talk about it because this Broncos defense at home, even for an amazing quarterback like Dak Prescott, for a team that's going to want to throw the ball as much as they do, I think they're going to slow down that offense. And defensively, I just do not trust the Cowboys defense to stop a nosebleed. I think this is going to be another game where Bo Nix does get his game off. The offense in general will get their game off. So for that reason, I'm going to go Broncos at home. Moving on Sunday night. Um, not a I don't know. I'm not really that excited. I think the storyline is pretty great for this game. We have Aaron Rodgers playing his old team, the Green Bay Packers, on Sunday Night Football. The Steelers coming off of a very difficult loss to a division rival in the Bengals, which is particularly hurts because now it does give teams like the Ravens a way back in, especially now when you consider they're playing a pretty good team. The Green Bay Packers, number one in the NFC. Charlie, I'll go to you first. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I like the Packers in this one. Um, yeah, I don't think that the Steelers will have a huge shout. I talk about good offensive lines. Rodgers hasn't been sacked in a couple games. Micah's coming off of a three-sack performance in the last one against the Cardinals. Um, I actually think this will be a pretty close one, but I think Jordan Love will make a play in clutch time, or the Packers will make a play in clutch time. Running back play, Josh Jacobs has been really good. So has Jalen Warren on the other side. I think it'll be a pretty good game. But yeah, I'm gonna edge with the Packers on this one. I think they have a slightly more talented all-around roster.
I think this is a match made in hell for Green Bay. They have one weakness on that Pittsburgh defense, and it's the outside cornerbacks. And who are they going to win with? Matthew Golden, Romeo Dobbs? I don't think
Romeo
so.
Dobbs had a good year. What are
Romeo
you talking
Dobbs
about?
he's had a good year, but he's not exactly a deep threat, and he's not exactly someone who's going to get peppered with targets. He's someone that's going to come up in a big spot here and there, but I don't think he's someone that you could rely on to be your game-changing player. That's who Josh Jacobs has been for Green Bay to this point this season. His
Tucker
inefficiency,
Kraft's been really solid.
Tucker Kraft's been good, but
Yeah.
Jacobs' inefficiencies aside, he's the player they're going to run their offense through game in, game out. As decent as Jordan Love has been this season, I wouldn't even say he's been great. He's been decent. I think Pittsburgh, on the flip side, have still one of the better defensive units in the league outside of that cornerback room. And then an offense who, as much as I hate to admit it, because I was probably number two on the Rodgers is done train behind you, Surge, he's been able to play some decent football to this point. He's been able to stand in the pocket and find whoever is open, and whether that be Jonnu Smith, Patrick Fryermuth, or DK Metcalf, they've done a decent enough job of just playing simple football. And that's just what Pittsburgh do. And that's why they win 9 games every year and then fall out because they don't do anything special, but they do enough to get what's right. And I think this is the game where they're going to be able to do it again.
I disagree. I'm gonna go Green Bay here, and the reason for that is I vehemently disagree that I think Pittsburgh have one weakness on defense. I think there's another glaring one, and that is their run defense. This is a run defense that allowed Chase Brown to have 108 yards on 11 carries. This is a run defense that allowed Justin Fields and Brees Hall, that duo, to carve them up on the ground. And I think against Josh Jacobs, that is a match made in hell. And then part two, I also think that Green Bay, sorry, no, Pittsburgh, a team that really relies on the quick game a lot, a team that will rely, as we saw against Cincinnati, on targeting the tight ends, when you're going against middle of the field monsters like Edgerrin Cooper, Xavier McKinney, Evan Williams also, I think that's also a match made in hell. Green Bay are a team that really rely on disguise, tackling very quickly. I don't think that bodes particularly well for Pittsburgh's quick game offense. So for that reason, I'm gonna go Green Bay. I think they win this one relatively comfortably. I think it'll be kind of akin to what we saw the Steelers game against Seattle, where they're just outmatched by a smarter, more diverse team. Because, like you said, simple football looks good against the bad teams, but against the good teams, I just don't see it working.
I could see why statistically you'd think the run defense hasn't been good, and it hasn't been good statistically. There's been running backs like Chase Brown should never be getting 100 yards against your team ever. Justin Fields, same thing goes. But I think that's more on the edge setting that Pittsburgh's been able to do, and I don't think that Jacobs is that kind of back where he's going to get to you outside the hashes. I think they're going to attack inside the zones, and that's where guys like Nick Herbig and guys like TJ Watt are able to play really well inside that area and make tackles. So that's where I was really seeing the run game going.
I could see that. No, I could see that. I would say also to be fair, Green Bay are a team that also do rely a lot on play action, and I think that also where rolling out, those rollout boots will also potentially hurt them. Um, But it'll be fun to watch. I'm interested to see it. Monday night now, we have the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs that for the first time in 2.5 years look like the Kansas City Chiefs of old. They've looked on fire on offense. They looked like one of the best offenses in the league even before the arrival of Rashee Rice, and now it looks like he might be the final piece to the puzzle. Going into Commanders defense that, safe to say, has disappointed heavily. That secondary has looked worse than we thought it would. That defensive line, we always thought it was undermanned. I feel like we've been proven right there. It's just a not very good unit. So I feel like Kansas City, they're going to be able to have their way on the offensive side of the ball. And we don't even know if Jane Daniels is going to be playing. So for that reason, KC win this one again pretty comfortably.
Yeah, give me KC. They've got everything going for them at this point. Rashee Rice is back. He's going to be one of the best receivers in the league down the stretch for the rest of the season. The running back room hasn't been particularly special. Elijah Mitchell, Kareem Hunt, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Isaiah Pacheco. It's just a group of guys, but it's not going to matter in this game. I think if you're able to have Mahomes play Mahomes ball, have the defense do what the defense needs to do, Washington's not going to be able to compete against a team that's been firing on all cylinders. I just wanted to mention Elijah Mitchell. That's why I said that, by the way. There
Fair
there was
enough.
no reason for me to say it. I
All
just looked
right.
at the roster and saw he was there. So, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I
yeah, no,
forgot him to be fair.
Patrick Mahomes is playing really, really good football right now. It's almost like it's a surprise to everybody that Mahomes is able to play good football all of a sudden. And Rashee Rice seems to have completed a puzzle that the Chiefs have been, putting the pieces together for. And Rashee Rice came in and it was great because I have him in like every fantasy league and they are just feeding him the ball. I don't know if you guys
Mhm.
watched the first red zone drive the Chiefs had this weekend. Um, they had first and goal from the 5 or 6 yard line, and the first play was a screen pass to Rashee Rice, and the second play was a fade to Rashee Rice, and the third play was a jet sweep to Rashee Rice. So like at a certain point, he's bound to get in the end zone, and we're like, yeah, let's just give it to him. I think he had 7 catches for like 40 yards this week, which is pretty crazy. They were just feeding him the ball, but not downfield. So yeah, the Chiefs in this one, Daniels is listed as questionable. It sucks that he's having an injury riddled season so far. For the Commanders, so is Terry McLaurin. Um, and the Commanders have not scored a lot of points yet this season, so I'm going to take the Chiefs in this one pretty comfortably.
Yep. And that will wrap up our coverage for week 8 of the NFL season. As always, if you made it through this entire episode, thank you so much for tuning in. It really means a lot to us. We will try and get it out as much as possible. Hopefully, now more, but we'll see. Again, thank you for watching. We will see you in the next one. This has been the Back Pocket Podcast. Serge Kadali, Charlie Nidell, and Dylan Shalom. We will see you in the next one.